Hello, I'm Howler Mouse, and I'm in a room that's under construction, if you will, right? Doing some things with the comic book room. But while I've been rearranging, moving things around, I've run across stuff in the collection, right? Over the years, I've gotten rid of many things, right? And then during that time around, I've ended up keeping things. Some of this stuff has come from the Purge box. Some of this stuff I just found wandering around. But there are comic books I absolutely hate. Some I want to get rid of, some that I can't let go. It's just amazing. So I figured I went through like the top 10. Some of you guys, if you watch this channel over the years, you're going to kind of guess two or three of these, right? Because very rarely do I really just like come out and just burn just burn a book, you know what I mean, like or something like that, right? So with that said, this has nothing to do with the creators of the book. This is not personal. This is a comic book collector who has thousands upon thousands of comics, decades upon decades of reading, and this is the stuff that just sort of filtered through and got stuck here that I just don't like. So, with no further ado, the top 10 books in my collection that I absolutely hate. So the first one was a huge letdown because back in the 90s, I really enjoyed the Ultraverse while it was coming out. And of course, with the glut of comics that was coming out in the 90s, I wasn't sure about picking up too many things. At the same time, I was also traveling, we'll put it that way, and ended up going into the military a little bit in the early 90s and stuff. So some things filtered through. And then when I traveled for work over the last few years, I was able to pick this series up, and thank goodness I document this stuff on YouTube. But pretty sure these came to like 50 cents. I think I got these out of a flea market bin where if you bought over like 20 comics, they dropped down to 50 cents a piece or something. But anyway, I just had to get this, right? Mike W. Barr, the guy who wrote many Brave and the Bold issues that I've read as a youngster, and then as a not so youngster, I was like on his Batman the Outsiders, and I was on his regular Batman books. I actually met him and got him to sign a few things for me at Baltimore Con a few years ago. And his contribution to the Ultraverse was Mantra. Mantra is the whole idea that there are these ancient warriors, if you will, fighting an ancient evil. And when they get killed, they are reincarnated. But now we're at the time where their reincarnations are running out. And we're down to the last one, who is Mantra. And she comes back as a woman with still the mind of a man. So we're playing with gender roles here and things like that, right? This was not the first time that Mike Barr played around with this that I'm aware of. If you read his Camelot 3000, he did it with one of the Knights of the Round Table and stuff, right? So I get this and I'm thinking, okay, cool. I get to, finally get into this, see what's going on with it. And oh my God, this book, this first issue just took me out of it. The execution is horrible. The story pacing does non-existent. The craftsmanship in this is just like, this. Has this guy ever written a comic before? Because I knew he had, but it was short circuit in my brain. It was written and jam packed so bad. It was the world building and stuff. So by the time that I tried to give issue 2 a try, I ended up kind of flipping through it and going on through the series. And then all of a sudden we got stupid tropes like, isn't it amazing that all of a sudden we have a character who is a man trapped inside of a woman's body, a very attractive woman, and he's got to figure out how to take care of this body and things like that. That all of a sudden he's getting marriage pushed on him. All these little weird tropes and contrived storylines started coming up, and I was just sort of like, can we go back to superheroes and monsters and things like that, to where I just gave up on it, right? So, no, I don't think it deserves a second reading. Sometimes your first impression is the right impression, even after you get older and give something a chance, because that has happened before, but I have often found that I was right. Number 9 on the list is, well, it's kind of a combination. When Bendis was coming to DC and it was announced he was going to be on Superman and he was going to be messing around with the Legion of Superheroes, I knew this was going to be a mess. I'm a huge Legion fan. You can go back and find like I don't know, my top recommended Legion of Superheroes stories and stuff. It's a video from like 2016 or 17. I have dabbled and mentioned and talked about the Legion of Superheroes many times here, so I knew it was going to be a mess. But little did I know that they were going to just let Bendis run roughshod. I like Bendis, Brian Michael Bendis's crime comics such as Powers, Torso, you know, that kind of thing, going way back and stuff, right? He needs to stick to the crime comics, right? Because when it comes to heroes, you can obviously tell that Bendis did not grow up reading comic books. He doesn't know the characters, and that's why they give him a clean slate. So by the time that we had the sort of introduction to his version of the Legion of Superheroes, which is so far moved away from what the Legion of Superheroes are or have been, despite all the reboots over the years. They're unrecognizable and they're tropey, and they were just horrible, right? We took the one that really bothered me was we took Lightning Lad, and he ended up turning him into Black Lightning. I'm like, that's a trope. That's not good, right? So somewhere along the line, I have a few more things by Bendis and stuff, right? The reason I got his Superman stuff up is this was the introduction of them. And then we move forward to where there was a miniseries, and if you don't remember it, it's okay, because nobody read it, nobody cared. But we had the Justice League versus the Legion of Superheroes by Michael Bendis, right? Brian Michael Bendis, no, this is garbage, this is trash. Uh, it's here. I've got one or two other issues floating around. I don't care if I ever find them, right? Just flame on, you know. So now we're going to go way back to like probably the first year of this channel. And I actually did a video where I used to get up much earlier for work. And I think I got up at like at 5 in the morning, if I remember. This is probably like 2011, 12, whatever. And I had was going through comic book news when it was worth reading online. And I read about the announcement of the Before Watchmen project, where they were going to come out with a bunch of miniseries that are prequels to Alan Moore's Watchmen, with Alan Moore having nothing to do with them, right? So there is a video going way back to them where I'm up at like 6:30 in the morning, just being all harsh and judgmental and probably reading the article. I kind of remember it. And one of the things that came out of that, there's actually two introductions in this, is this one, Night Owl number 8. Number 8 of the most hated videos, number 8 of my most hated comic books, is Night Owl. Now, this suffers from fantastic Joe Kubert, Andy Kubert covers. They, just seeing the Kuberts touching this was actually kind of pretty cool. I was like, okay, we'll check it out. And ironically, if that's maybe the situation, J. Michael Straczynski did 2 of the 4-issue miniseries in Before Watchmen. He did Dr. Manhattan, he did Night Owl. Dr. Manhattan, he knocked it out of the park. So if you go by that scale of probably being one of the best miniseries out of that, we go to the other end of the scale, and this is just horrible. You talk about calling it in. I'm like, what is the point? There's no momentum. He's not even really trying to make it feel like it's the real world, if you will. The mood, the execution of this is just horrible. And luckily, the Kuberts are just drawing their hearts out here, trying to save this and stuff, right? So it was no wonder they put a little bit of star power on this. They're messing around with the titillation. They brought in Rorschach. It's just very underwhelming. If you read The Watchmen, you could see that these characters are interesting, even if they're not going to have spectacular adventures and stuff, right? And none of that's in here. This was just such a huge letdown. I really felt like throwing it across the room when it came out. Now this one, probably around the 2013 or 14. I actually did 2 videos where I talked about 2 books I did not like. One was, and I do believe they were both by popular demand at the time with the people who watched the channel way back then, right? At least one was. I don't know about this one, right? But everybody knows that I cannot stand Justice League Detroit, okay? So, oh my God. All right, Justice League Detroit was what, around 1984? Bless the people that tried to do this. Jerry Conway, take your pick, and poor Chuck Patton. Started out on this, and then Luke McDonald came on and stuff, but basically it was one of the first times I did like a reboot of the Justice League in the book. Okay, so basically, Martian Manhunter returns to Earth after being gone for a while. Some kind of Martian war goes off. Drama, drama, drama. The league splits up. The satellite's just floating out in space, destroyed during the Martian war, I think, and then it gets destroyed in Crisis. Then Despero comes back and destroys it. It's the only satellite I've ever seen that was destroyed 3 times, and it keeps getting wrecked over and over, right? But anyway, this is where they were trying to be relevant and street level and mutant like because of the books that were going on. So they went young and brought in Gypsy, who's I guess a mutant, and Vibe, who's a mutant without saying it. And you can go back and watch my Justice League Detroit. Just probably put in Howler Mouse and Justice League Detroit. It should come up. I might put a link in the bottom here if I can remember to do that, where I kind of show you the comparisons of them and the X-Men and stuff, right? They even had Aquaman trying to use his powers with controlling fish. They even had him starting to try to use his mental powers on humans and things like that. And he went complete dick. I was trying to make him like a I don't know, combination of Cyclops and Xavier a little bit, even though Martian Manhunter proper has the telepathy powers. You got to go deep into your comics to see all this. Still was Colossus, and they brought in Zatanna, Vixen. They're on the streets of Detroit walking around, and they're fighting these people on street level crimes, getting with the people. And then you have Vibe. Vibe, a character so vile and so stereotyped and so token-like that even George Perez had issues morally and things like that when it came to doing the JLA Avengers crossover 20 years ago, when he found out he had to draw Vibe and stuff, right? So yeah, just a lot of people have a fondness for this. A lot of people are more forgiving than I, but it was quickly falling apart. They knew it was falling apart. They sort of teased the idea of Justice League Detroit versus the Justice League by throwing in a Mazo to give you something after all these terrible, dirty streets they were on and living in a factory, and Aquaman taking off. He formed a team and then he ran off with his redheaded Jean Grey, Mira, after she had left him. And then they started doing terrible things to the Justice League Detroit, and people were fine with that. And then here we go, Justice League Satellite getting destroyed again. Just a lot of horrible things going on with this book. Most of the new characters died at the end. They survived Crisis, and then the Legends miniseries came out a year later, and they had Legends crossovers numbered, and the Justice League ended up, each issue had one of them getting killed by Professor Ivo, I think, which led into the Justice League by DeMantis and McGuire, which everybody was craving, right? So let's check that one off the list and next, right? Okay, number 6. Now this one's going to, again, you can tell what I read and things I give a chance and stuff, right? With before Watchmen, the balloon was off the rose. After I got through that, I could have cared less what they came out with, right? They already did it. They blasphemed Watchmen and went back and messed around with it, and not all of it was terrible, right? And then this thing came out a couple years ago, and I ended up finding almost all the issues but the first one in dollar boxes. Because it's Tom King, and if I had like 1 to 5 stars for this book and I was going to pick one, it would be 1, but it would be a terrible one because it's like Tom King stuck his finger up his ass so he can just like enjoy the smell, because that's how bad this is. I could not finish this, right? This is just beyond horrible. Tom King owes us money for being his therapist with a lot of his works and stuff, right? But yeah, this Rorschach Black Label miniseries with the awesome Jim Lee cover, if you look at that, he has Dr. Manhattan Waits, and he has a Bobastis mirror there, if you will. So yeah, but I got these came out with 2 covers apiece. This is all 12 issues, and holy crap, oh my god, it was so bad. I tried to read it in 2 settings. I think I made it to issue 8, and I actually whined on Instagram saying, like, I couldn't finish this thing. This was horrible. I don't think anybody commented that they liked it, or they made it, or they even gave it a shot because it was Tom King. Now, what's wild about this is going to tie into the next book, right? Because you know, a lot of people were trying to say that when Tom King was making the scene, I never saw it, and I think a lot of people are not going to say they actually said it, but it's out there. But there was people like Tom King's going to be the next Alan Moore. I'm like, what? No, you know. So that's kind of one of the reasons I think he got to touch Rorschach. But Rorschach was influenced. It basically originally he was Mr. A in the Question, more like the Question. But if you read Mr. A, that's who he actually is more influenced by, if you will, right? So a friend of mine, a very good friend, sent this to me because I love my Ditko. And I never had a book, maybe, you know, what is this? Number 5 of my most hated books. We're halfway through. But Mr. A, oh my God. The whole concept here is that you have this card, right? Mr. A has, right? And you see Mr. A here all dressed in white, if you will, right? And Mr. A's whole concept is that there is nothing in between. There's no shades of gray, right and wrong, right? Which you see in Rorschach's mask, black and white, no compromise and stuff, right? Never have I seen something so preachy. I get that this is based on Steve Ditko talking about his philosophy that he believed within life, and he was doing art. And I read this thing, and it's like, why do I do this to myself? But I have never seen a hero that is so hypocritical, so self-righteous, and I think that might be the point. Okay, I think that's the point of this, right? A lot of Mr. A fans out there. I read this book because I'm just like, I don't know. It's like I'm a glutton for punishment sometimes with the way it makes me react. Now, I would definitely recommend people. This is wild. This book drives me nuts. This character drives me nuts. Horrible things happening here. It shows the worst of humanity. And we have this self-righteous character who has self-appointed himself to, you know, being Mr. Morals and stuff, right? Mr. Self-Righteous. And that might be the whole point of the character. Maybe this thing just gets under my skin because that's exactly what it's supposed to do. I don't know. But for a book I hate, I would still recommend people read it. It's Steve Ditko, man. It's philosophy. It's you read this book, you're definitely going to have a discussion. You know, so there you go. I mean, talk about a book that does what it's supposed to. Now, some of you people are going to see this next book, this next character, and be like, oh my God. Let me make sure I'm telling you right. He's just number 4 because this was a video that I made 3 years of people asking me, begging me to make a video of why do you hate this character so bad. So you can go watch a shot on a potato camera with a potato sound. Hopefully this is working. And this one right here, yeah, I made the video why I hate Booster Gold. But yet I have a number 1, and I have the Jeff Johns 1 through 10, which was actually 12 issues because there was a 0 issue and a 1 million issue. But anyway, and 2 issues by Chuck Dixon because it was Chuck Dixon, right? But this is one of those things where I definitely have I just don't hate the character, but I have an informed opinion, right? I've read it. I've read the stuff. And then all of a sudden it was like over the years, over the course from 1987 on, it was like maybe 86 on, they just started, everything I loved in comics, they kept throwing Booster Gold in. He had an issue where the Legion of Superheroes came after him. This is a villain. This guy has the origin of a villain, the attitude of a villain, nothing heroic about him. Fame, fortune, narcissism, entitlement, it's all there. But they make him goofy. They make him so freaking goofy that he's toxic to other characters around him, like the great Ted Kord at one point in time. See what's happening? So anyway, we'll just leave it there. You can go back, Why I Hate Booster Gold. You can check out that video also. And if you want me to get to buy a comic, all you got to do is have Booster Gold getting killed, maimed, or destroyed on the cover. And then a YouTuber from way back in the day sent me a message with the screenshot of this when it was announced. It's Booster Gold must die. Batman saying Booster Gold must die. But they ended up throwing Booster Gold in my Legion of Superheroes. Granted, it was in his book. But then he started popping up in my Justice League. Then he popped up in my Action Comics John Byrne. And then over the years, he would infiltrate into the Commandy universe. They made Rip Hunter, somebody who is, hold on. Rip Hunter, somebody that I have liked since I was 5 or 6 years old in 52, I think it was DC 52. They made him the son of Rip Hunter. And then they threw him in the Commandy. And then he just, everything, Justice League cartoon. everything that I love, they would just like, it's like they were out to get me. You don't like him now, well, you're going to hate him later, is what it felt like, right? All right, we're just flying through this, man. Good for you if you're still here. We're trying to wrap this up. Number 3, I don't know what happened to Jeff Johns, all right? Uh, I have boxes of his stuff. Right over here, I have his entire Justice Society. I have some of his Marvel Avengers run, right? I've got many of his miniseries. Jeff Johns, great writer, right? And then all of a sudden, it was like after Blackest Night, and well, dabbling in Blackest Night, one of the last great crossover that DC ever had. It's like he started wanting to be Alan Moore, and then all of a sudden he was bringing in and tapping lots of Alan Moore in horrible, terrible ways, like with Doomsday Clock, messing with the Watchmen, and having some killing joke Easter eggs in there and stuff. And then we go straight for it. Built this story up for years, and we had Batman 3 Jokers. So this is what they're trying to say, is that the Joker, the original Joker, went out and made other Jokers. So you have 3 different kind of Jokers. You have the original Joker, you have the Joker of Alan Moore's Killing Joke, and then you have the Joker of 52. They're all different characters, and this is the bonus stuff that came with it. And that Joker is very old. And you're telling me Batman never made a connection, never saw the difference. The Joker was able to pull this off. He was able to leave one of the Jokers alone with the Red Hood. If you know Jason Todd and the Joker's history, so many bad decisions in this that I'm just sort of like, this is sloppy, this is contrived, this is, comic books, we suspend our belief a little bit. We have a little contract. You make the rules, we'll go by them. You don't take liberties with the characters, and you surprise us, we'll give you a shot. This one is just like, it's that, I think of a Skid Row song from back in my days where it's like, you tell me that it's raining, but you're really pissing down my back. And that's how this book makes me feel. Yeah. Going back to Skid Row for you guys, right? Number 2, I swear, I feel like I'm missing the joke. I feel like everybody is in on some kind of joke, and they make this character sound like she's epic and loved and missed. And this was Alan Moore's Odyssey that did not, his masterpiece that never was finished. Like, it's poetic, and she makes people cry. And I got the first 2 volumes, and I read this, and I'm like, she doesn't do anything. She's just floating around in the stories, and everything's happening around her. And then you'll see Neil Gaiman say, Alan Moore told me how Halo Jones ended, and I cried. And I'm like, is this a joke? I don't get it. This came out in 2000 AD, the magazine, which was all Strodium Dog and Judge Dredd. I get it. It was all, like politics and attacking religions and boy fantasy and space testosterone, whatever, right? So Alan Moore went the opposite and gave us the Ballad of Halo Jones in there, right? From Ian Gibson's artwork. He's a great storyteller, but I have to say the whole combination, oh my God, how can I say this? We'll go with the TV show Laverne and Shirley, right? I like Pepsi, okay? That's Alan Moore. I like milk. Ian Gibson's a great artist. I've seen some of his other stuff, right? But you mix the two, and they just don't go together. 2 great things separate. Maybe it's just me, right? But I'm so confused with, I'm just not in on the joke. She doesn't help resolve any of the plots, any of the stories, and we're just supposed to care that she escaped from more or less the space ghetto and became a stewardess on a cruise ship, and they, for some reason, they just show a classroom like 4,000 years in the future, teaching about Halo Jones, something like that, right? There's a killer metallic dog, robotic dog going around killing people, and I'm like, oh my God, you know what I mean? Like, it makes me just, no, this is horrible. No, horrible. All right, so that's just horrible. I just don't like it. And the number 1 most hated book of all time, right? Oh my God. Oh man, I'm remembering the first time I read this, right? I have let the other people read this. I have met a few other people who love Neil Gaiman's Sandman, and we went and got this because this is the story of destiny, a chronicle of death foretold. In the artwork is absolutely atrocious in this, right? It is horrible. Um, the story is non-existent. I'm like, this has got to be the worst executed book ever. You never heard of it? Well, there's a reason why. This thing is so bad it doesn't even deserve to be infamous instead of famous, right? Um, so, and the people that have read this who love Sandman and Neil Gaiman's Sandman and anything to do with comics, this makes them angry. Like I'm having an emotional reaction remembering reading this thing, right? But it's by Alyssa Quinty and Kent Williams. And the problem with this is that I have seen Kent Williams do some beautiful artwork, and the guy has a whole career outside of comics and he's praised and he does different stuff. I totally get that. I'm all for abstractness and things that are ugly to get the reaction out of you and stuff, right? But this has got to be the worst 3 issues of any comic anywhere at any time. I seem to be having this thing where I run across some badly written books and I'm just sort of like, anybody who wants to get in comics, give it a shot because you can do better than this, right? So there you go. Yeah. All right. Top 10 most hated books in my collection. And I will tell you, as with anything, this could change tomorrow, but probably not. At least the top 5. Yeah, from Booster up. No, no. So anyway, like, share, subscribe, give me comments. Go ahead and let me know some books you cannot stand. Um, why not? Why not? Maybe we can mystery science theater in the death, right? Later.